Hey, Michael. How are
Hello.
you?
I-
Welcome to my therapy couch.
I'm great. I'm great. No, I love being here. You
Uh,
give me a lot of therapy through the years, so
oh,
yeah.
and you, me, brother. We have certainly been confidants for one another. It's been very, very cool. I'm going to ask you some fun questions today because it's a little bit of getting to know you today.
Okay.
So, out of curiosity, what have you been working on recently?
I've been writing a lot of books
Hmm.
furiously. Books to me have now become my kids
Hmm.
because I don't have any kids that I know of. I know everyone says that. They're like, only men can get away with saying that. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, I was at a mastermind with Russell Brunson from ClickFunnels. I got invited by my buddy Sean Osborne,
Hmm.
and I've always loved books after I graduated college.
Yeah.
And Russell said at this mastermind, he's like, yeah, very few people have ever told me, if any, that my course changed their life, but they'll all say your book changed my life.
Hmm.
And it's clearly still the only thing that can outlive an author. And kind of my personal life and stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have kids in this lifetime.
Right.
And if I don't, I'm just going to work on these books. And for me, it's sort of a way to put what I've learned and experienced and put it out into the world and just let God and the universe do whatever.
Hmm.
And it's also a way to close a chapter
Hmm.
in your life. Once you write a book on something, you're like, all right, I move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like literally, there's nothing else to say
That's
about it
true. Hmm.
other than interviews and stuff like that. And it's really cool in this day and age to build stuff. I think we do live in a very fast turnaround, quick dopamine hit culture, but there's still something so satisfying about building something that takes and represents a lot of what you've learned and earned, lessons learned and earned,
Hmm.
and to put it out. So that's what I've been working on, and just trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life after.
Yeah. What did you want to do when you were young growing up?
I wanted to be a comic book artist. I got into comic books when I was in junior high. It was in the 90s. And that's when comic books like hit peak like sales, like to the point where it got super commercialized.
Hmm.
So Deadpool, the X-Men, all the movies now that have come out in the last 10 years, a lot of those stories are taken from the ones that I read. So I liked drawing. I won a lot of art awards when I was a kid. And my mom was like, "That's the devil," because she got super churchy around that time. So she like forbade me to do it. But she just knew I had talent in art, and I was like, "Well, it's your fault. I stopped drawing." It wasn't. I'm just kidding.
Hmm.
Um, and before that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My dad would ask me that question all the time, and just to get him off my back, I would just say, "I want to be a movie guy." He thought I meant an actor,
Hmm.
and he was so impressed. He was like, "Oh, my son, handsome, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah." I didn't have the heart to tell him I meant the movie guy inside the movie theater
No.
who would who was the usher.
Yeah.
Because back when I was a kid, they used to wear blazers and they would clean up the thing. And I was like, at least he gets to see free movies. That was my
Wow.
level of ambition
Wow.
at the time. And I didn't tell him, literally, I didn't tell him until I was 40.
Wow. But that wasn't true. Yeah,
Oh, hey,
he misinterpreted
I
that.
gotta tell you something. I don't know much longer you're gonna be alive. I just I wish I had his reaction on
Oh my
video.
God.
He just like typical Asian guy. All right, we ordered a beer. So yeah, man, I didn't know I had it in me to be an entrepreneur, or
Yeah.
I never would have in a million years thought I could do this. And I think I was just born at the right time,
Yeah.
born at the right generation with the right technology
Yeah.
to be able to do it. So yeah,
So what comes first for you? Is it work, friends, family, or yourself?
work first. I mean, objectively speaking, looking at what I spend my time doing, friends and family are super, super important. I'm really close to my family,
Hmm.
which is odd because I didn't think that we had a close family when I was growing up.
Hmm.
And after I got older, after I actually got divorced, my family got super close because we were just around each other more. and then my sister had kids so that I don't have to have any, I guess. And so I saw them growing up and helped out a lot, and through COVID and all that stuff down in the DC area. I love my friends. I always tell, you know, people I'd die for family, I'd kill for my friends. You know, it's like that. So, but I'm trying to put myself first more.
Yeah.
I do overwork. There's definitely something I'm running from or hiding from, or I just have too much time on my hands. But I'm excited about kind of just the way that's going to pan out.
Yeah. What do you admire most about your parents?
Oh, great question. I'll phrase it this way. I live in the town right now that I went to kindergarten in, and I still drive through the towns that we grew up in New Jersey. And so when I would, like recently, I just drove through one of my old towns where I lived up until fourth grade. And I texted my dad, which is a miracle that we even like talk like this, because we didn't have a great relationship. And we've, you know, reconnected over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm like, hey, why did you move us from this town? I'm driving through it to the other town. And he goes, you remember your mom's crazy friend, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah. She came over one night and stayed over for the weekend and just went crazy. And the people next door complained to the landlord and he kicked us out.
Wow.
And I'm like, wait, what? And then I was like, I remember that lady. I always thought she was a little off. And he was like, yeah. And what's going through my head at the time, Nick, because you have kids, I was like, wait, let me do the math. Oh my God. Dad was 34 years old when that happened. He's 12 years younger than I am now. Like when my dad was my age right now, I was graduating high school.
Wow.
And my sister was in 9th grade. And I'm like, it's given me a lot more grace for him and for my mom, because my mom had to put up with my dad too. And I'm just like, shoot, I don't know if I'd have my life figured out if I had a 17-year-old and 14-year-old right now. Right? I have way more skills and awareness, and culture is different, but I admire that they just toughed it through. And what's interesting about my parents is they're not imposing people. They don't ask us for money. They will fight tooth. I'm like, Mom, let's go to Hawaii. She's like, no, I'm only going for 3 days. You know, that doesn't make any sense. It takes like 2 days to get there. So I admire that they toughed it out and they survived, and their way, I think, in a sense of like, you know what? We love you. We're not going to get in your way.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for them, and it's good enough for me. And now I'm in a position to help them and be with them. So
what do you admire about each of them individually?
My mom is really patient, and she's very go with the flow. That's where I get my emotional equanimity from. I'm just calm. Like that's her. I admire that. She's definitely a caretaker. I get those pieces from her. My dad, he taught me to read. He gave me a love of language. I remember being a kid, and he would actually play these cassette tapes in the car while we drive around, because he's learning the language. Wow. He's learning English. He's immersing himself. And so he used to have these tapes with vocabulary words, and he would, you know, learn them in the car. So I think that's where I got a lot of that self-education piece from. He also is just like, he is completely a rebel. Like he doesn't want to be told how to live his life or what to do. For some people that can become real unhealthy, but for others, you know, they can channel it the right way. And there were just some ways that he didn't channel it exactly right. But I also understand the situation he was in. And I get that from him. He gave me that, like, screw this. I'd rather be poor and die on my own terms than like, you know, be enslaved to anything. Yeah. And he was just that. So I admire that, honestly, about him in that regard.
That's awesome. Those are beautiful stories. I haven't heard those ones before. What would you do differently than your mom?
I would draw the line, stand up for myself more, prioritize myself more. She still can't do it. She still has a hard time doing it. She'll put her husband first. They got remarried, and he's much older than her. And we went out to dinner recently. They took me out for my birthday. She drove all the way up from Washington, D.C. area to New Jersey to take me out for dinner like 2 weeks before my actual birthday. And I'm like, you guys are old. Why are you driving so far? He's like, because getting old and you're single and alone and depressed. So we went, so she brought him and the three of us went out. I'm close to him too. And, I was just scolding him. I'm like, hey, chick, like that's his nickname. His name is Charles. He's Irish. Like, chick, you robbed the cradle, bro. Mom is like 17 years younger than you. Like, you got to take care of her. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I never thought of it that way. And I was like, yeah, man, you robbed the cradle. This is your baby, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you got to like it. So it's just a little bit of that. I was like, stop making her drive you around everywhere. Like, let her hire some help for you and stuff like that. So it's been real good fun. But I would change that about her if I could. I got the art piece from her. She went to a great art school in Korea. It's like the top of the top. And just a different world back then. Didn't turn it into a career. Had a kid when she was 25. I was born. My dad was 29 and she was 25 when I was born. And then they had a miscarriage or an abortion, second kid. And then my sister was born 3 years later. So, dude, I'm like, I will say those things to my sister. I was like, yo, when mom was your age, I was graduating high school and you were in ninth grade. She's like, yo, that's crazy.
Wow.
Blows my mind.
Wow.
So it has given us a little bit of
Context,
of
yeah.
context. Yeah.
What would you do differently than your dad?
I would channel all of that energy. He I don't know what order this was, but he came over from Korea when he was past like the graduating years of college that in America, but he still went to UC Berkeley, which is a top of the line school. So academically, he obviously could cut it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't good academically, weirdly enough. I like stumbled my way through college. And he worked in a fish store, like an aquarium store. So he loves marine life and knows, and that's probably where I got it from. I never put two and two together. And he's also, I think, a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo. And he had his own gym. So this dude, well, like he really, maybe he did have that entrepreneurial side, I just didn't know about it. So he did all that. And then when he graduated college, he was offered a job by the CIA.
Wow.
Because he is like bilingual.
Wow.
And this is, from the horse's mouth. So I'm just relaying what my dad said, right? And he was like, yeah, so we got married and I finished school and they said, we want you to come work for the CIA and you're not allowed to tell anybody this except for your wife. But he told everybody. And he told his friends and he told my uncles. And they're like, no, don't do that. They're going to freaking get you killed. They're going to send you like a spy to North Korea or something. And so he's like, so I didn't do it. And then I just went to work at a car dealership. And I'm like, wait, what? Wait, what? I don't like, so I see that like in him. I'm sure there were people in his life that were like, hey man, try to get your act together. Or I'm sure my grandmother said stuff like that. He just was, I'm not listening to anybody. And so it just channeled
Totally.
like the wrong way. But I see where I get a lot of that rebellious streak from. And I'm like, mother freaking dude. And so, I have all these stories with him. I didn't talk to him for about 10 years because he like jacked up some stuff with like my finances. And then he yelled at my ex-wife a lot. And I was like, dude, we can't do this. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I turned 40, I hadn't talked to him for almost 10 years. He emails me. The last email I got from him is like, if you were drowning in the water, I wouldn't save you. I was like, thanks. Yeah, way to go. Right. And then 10 years later, he's like, I turned 40. He's like, welcome to the age of no delusions. I was like, this freaking guy, of course, he would say something like, how are you doing? And whatever. And I realized, oh my gosh, he doesn't know anything about me. He doesn't know that I got divorced. He doesn't know that I started a business. He like literally doesn't know anything about me. And all he wants is 2 things in life: to talk to me and my sister. Wow. So I'm only one of the people that can give him this gift. So I responded to him. We talked for an hour on the phone, like the next day. And it was just so interesting to like catch up. And he was living in Hawaii at the time. So I flew over the next year, went to Hawaii. He turned 70 that year. His birthday's in 3 days from today. Yeah. We're sitting down. And dude, I just gave it to him and he gave it to me. It was awesome. We went out drinking. Like, I'd be like, he's like, I told you not to marry that girl. I was like, all right, go ahead, bust my balls. You have the right. Yeah, he's like, just let him have it, right? And I just saw his life, and I was like, this dude is just. I would be him if I just made 3 decisions in my life differently than him.
Wow.
Like, he's on his phone. He's like, oh, so this lady's gonna join us for dinner. I was like, is she your girlfriend? No, she's just this girl that, like, where's she from? New York. Like, you mean she flew over from New York to Hawaii? Like, just tell me the truth. So we go out with her. The next day we go out to dinner. He's like, oh, so we're gonna go to dinner, but my ex-girlfriend's coming. I was like, how many do you have? He's on his phone, literally just like texting. I was like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
How do you get these women to take care of you? I don't understand. Like, you have no money, you have no prospects, but you just have Riz. I'm like, bro, dude, what the heck? So we go, I'm going on and on about this story, but I'm getting this documented, so I'm going to send it to him, right? So we go out to the sushi restaurant, and he's like, oh, my ex-girlfriend Lisa's going to join us for dinner. I'm like, why am I meeting your ex-girlfriend? But it's kind of a Korean thing. It's like, she's like older and raised her kids, and so did he, and they're just probably like, all right, let's just stay friends. We don't have to do this drama, right? And so I was like, tell me about her. He's like, oh, I loved her. Like, I really thought she was hot. I was like, oh, that's gross. Like, that's so disgusting. Don't ever say that to me again. It's like, grandma and grandpa met her, and, you know, she ran a business in Honolulu, and she's a Korean lady. I was like, oh, that's pretty tough. You know, a lot of racism back then, right? And so she raised her 2 kids, and I was like, she sounds better than you, right? And so I'm busting his balls too. So she comes to dinner, and I really like her. Right. So we're drinking sake and stuff, but we're just getting hammered. And I was like, why didn't it work out with you two? And she speaks English. She's like, your father just keeps talking to all these other women.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, Dad, you can't do that. He's like, no, she just doesn't understand I'm a magnanimous person. Like, I care about people. And I was like, what kind of woman's going to be okay with that? And she goes, why is your son so much smarter than you? Like, you just, so it's like, we had a ton of fun. He was getting hammered. He was freaking loud. He's singing in the restaurant because he's so drunk.
Wow.
So he tells me, he's like, all right, I got something to tell you. I was like, oh, here we go. He's like, when you were 25, I got married. I was like, what? Wait, what? He's like, yeah. And he's telling this in front of Lisa. I got married when you were like 25. Like, to who? She's like, she's some woman. And you know, I was like, why didn't it work out? She has so much money. She came from a family of money. It hurt my pride, and she wanted to move to Vancouver, and I couldn't handle that she made more money, so we annulled it after, like, you know, a year. And I was like, you dumb mother. I was like, you tell me I could have a rich stepmom? How did you blow this? Like, you were, and I just given it to him, and we're just laughing, man. And it was fun. I was like, he's just a friend now. He is no longer my father, in that sense. And a lot, to be really serious about it, like, to, you know, in all seriousness, like, I did have to do a lot of work because of the path that our lives took. And I don't know exactly when it was, but that's what growth is like. Sometimes you just wake up one day and you just realize, oh, this doesn't affect me anymore. And one day I realized I became the man that I wished my father was when I was younger. Like, I'd love to have myself as a dad. And I think that's a big self-image thing. I can still love him and accept him for who he is without holding that against him. And then, to take it a step further, I think it was like, dang, I have become the son I would have been really proud to have. And so he's just living, and he just texted me earlier today. And, dude, bro, I'm not making this up. Helen from New York came to see me on my birthday. It's the same lady that like 5 years ago in Hawaii. I'm like, you can't make this up. So yeah, you know, he's just doing his thing. I went to see him about a year ago in Korea. He lives there now. And yeah, it's all good.
And he's overcome some things, yeah?
I'm sure he's overcome some things. Like, you know, when I went to go visit him, we went to go see my grandparents' grave. I'm like, how are we getting there? You can't even walk up the stairs because you're like battling cancer. Some lady freaking just picks us up and drives. I was like, is she your girlfriend? He's like, associate. I was like, what do you mean? What are you doing? Like, right? So like, but I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
I can see, not that I'm like this crazy womanizer or something like, but I'm just like, I can see like there's this longing for connection
Right. Right.
in
Right.
him, and like people are drawn to him and want to take care of him. That's probably how he got my mom.
Mm.
She's a caretaker, and he's got his own weird quirks. After he dies, I will publish a book called "Shit My Dad Says,"
Mm.
and they're the most non-PC, horribly funny, if you have a sense of humor,
Right.
comments on my text thread. It's
Amazing.
outrageous. So yeah, I mean, I've the fact I can talk about it like this lightheartedly
Yeah.
just shows that I've put in the work, and
For sure.
so it's great.
It's awesome. So how did we become friends and why?
I met you, if I recall correctly. I was in Lyman, New York. At the time, I was working at a church, and I was the worship leader. For those of you who don't know, it's basically the music director,
Yeah.
but cooler. We have bands. We don't have choirs. Actually, I think choirs are really cool. Way more work and talent involved in doing that. But back when I was in my 20s, I didn't think it was cool, and I got invited to lead worship at some small leaders event.
Mm-hmm.
And you came with Pierre, who was your pastor at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you were his like assistant or
Yeah.
second in charge or whatnot. And so I remember meeting you, and you had that big Nick grin on your face. And then I was friends with guys who were on the leadership team at the church, but I didn't know you.
Yeah.
And we all did music together, so that's why I knew those guys, Dennis and Nate and all these guys. And that was just kind of it.
Yeah.
And then I remember I put out an invite to my email list about a mastermind I was putting together, and you joined.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this was probably 5 years ago. It was definitely before COVID, like 5, 6
For
years
sure.
ago,
Yeah.
maybe 7. And that's just sort of how we reconnected. And I was like, oh, Nick, okay, cool. And I was like, what the heck? You are this like energy overlord. Just like have this energy
Yeah.
about you, which I think is just contagious. I love it. I know we did some events and stuff through the years, and one time I shared an Airbnb with you, and I don't really do that anymore. Not because of you, but I like my solitude. And it was like an ungodly hour in the morning, and I just heard music pumping and you screaming. You're like, guess who's coming? Wow, today's gonna be a great fucking day. And I can't even go as high as you. I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Yeah, that's how we met. This is gonna be either like friendships like that are either like lifers or like I'm never gonna see you again. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we are all these years later.
Kind of like the crazy girl you meet at the bar.
Yeah, you've mellowed out a lot actually.
Yeah.
In a good way. In that sense,
Mhm.
right? But yeah, you have a gear that I just don't have.
That's fun, dude. That's awesome. I have one last question for you, and it's around this concept of things that people don't know about you that they might find fascinating or interesting. One of the things that, I mean, I've known you for over a decade, that I learned in the last 48 hours is how much you love the WWE. I had no idea. And it probably like passed over through storylines, and I didn't pick up on it. But you have to tell me this infatuation with the WWE.
Okay. So to set the record straight, I don't really watch a lot anymore. I stopped watching after.
That's what they all say.
Yeah, no. I stopped watching regularly after college.
Yeah.
I felt like the product changed and it wasn't for me. But when I was in college, like it was what they call the Monday Night Wars. And it appealed to me in those years because they were just trying to out raunchy each other, the two companies, WWF and WWE and WCW. But I watched wrestling when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. Like they were just on TV, like public TV. So Hulk Hogan and all those really wholesome, say your prayers and eat your vitamins. That's what I watched. Then in high school, I was like, this is super cheesy. Like this is like dorky. Like I'm not, and we didn't have it on public TV anymore. They were on cable. And my parents, we didn't have cable TV. They just cut us off from like cable TV. I had no video games, so we didn't have that. So, and there was no internet, obviously. So when I went to college, we had cable TV in school. at school, in the dorms and in the student centers and stuff like that. And the product had changed, and they were trying to hit that 20 something male demographic, and were just killing it. So that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock was insanely popular. And I I know he's like done some horrible things, Vince McMahon and stuff, but he is legitimately one of the greatest storytellers of our generation.
Yeah, it's true.
And talking about personal branding, which is what I do a lot for work and stuff like that, he would take someone who comes in to try to become a WWE superstar, and he would say this: I'm going to look for one or two things about this person's character or experiences, and we're just going to magnify it by 10.
Wow.
And he'd create these characters and these narratives. So he's one of the greatest storytellers, to be honest. The whole company, the industry is just all storytelling.
Yep.
And I think it helped shape like what I do and understand the world. I actually wrote my senior thesis in college about the WWE.
Wow.
Yeah. And how influential they were. I graduated college in 2001. And that's when Bush and Gore and that whole election where it was like very contested. And one of the pieces that I wrote in the paper was how they literally advertised on WWE programming, go rock the vote.
Wow.
The Rock would be like, go rock the vote. Like they were pushing
Wow.
young people to go vote. That's how powerful they were.
That's incredible.
So it's cool. So yeah, I don't watch much anymore. The Rock came back, so they hit the nostalgia button, and so I watched it, and it works, man.
One last question for you, Mike. You always say you have the year of something. I'm curious. 2024 has been the year of what? And 2025 will be the year of what?
2024 was writing all these books, and the year of learning what it really means to grow a company, for better or worse, right? Some lessons learned and earned that way. And 2025 will just be the year of creator, video, like social, like all the people that have I've been able to meet. And I want to learn this new language of marketing, advertising, communication, social media. That's what I plan to do.
Incredible. Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Much love, G.